I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of PowerBand Solutions. PowerBand is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. PowerBand Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWPF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman, Vice President of Communications for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. Welcome back to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Jordan, April Fool's Day, April 1st. It's not a joke, though, when you take a look at all the things it's going to cost us more to work and live in British Columbia. I guess the employer health tax is what concerns your membership the most?
Yeah, I mean, that kicked in January. First of all, it's probably poetic that government every year starts its fiscal year on April Fool's Day, because often it's we taxpayers who are played for the fool by our politicians. But the employer health tax kicked in January. Now we're into month 3 of remittances in March, and April is coming due soon. I think businesses are really starting to realize just what a chunk this is taking out of their bottom line, and there's a real discomfort when you think about the fact that someone might be paying their MSP themselves still for the rest of this year. Their employer's paying their employer health tax. Their wife's employer is paying their employer health tax, and you're paying higher taxes because municipalities are passing along the costs of their employer health tax. So, this is a quadruple whammy for a lot of people.
Is there anything you can do to mitigate it apart from not hire people?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. We want jobs in this province, and while the economy has been percolating along pretty good, it's not going to do it forever, and there are storm clouds on the horizon economically. So, yeah, the last thing you want to do is be cutting jobs, but you can't blame these employers, right? If it becomes too costly to hire that extra person on the crew or in the shop, they're not going to do it. And, that means more burden on the current workforce. That means fewer jobs for people to transition between. And it's bad for the economy. So the NDP government, they don't really seem to care much about businesses or employers and what they're doing. They claim this is some sort of tax break for the public. The truth is, we'll all end up paying it somehow, whether it's through higher taxes for our municipalities or, having less help at work when you need it.
Well, if you're going to have a general health care tax, wouldn't have income taxes been fairer to make sure you have the income? Whereas if you're a business and you're struggling, you may not have the income to pay this. Right.
It's a way for the government to kind of say that they're keeping income taxes low. And look, the government's already gone to that income tax well a couple of times. They've hiked the income taxes on high income earners, which are often job creators or people who are in the position to hire people. So there's only so much space that they can have there. They decided that this payroll tax, which is a proven economic slower or a job killer, they've decided that this is the way they want to go, and unfortunately they have the levers of power, and Dr. Weaver doesn't seem very interested anymore in holding them to account.
Is BC losing business and losing jobs because of it?
Well, it adds to our lack of competitiveness. The Business Council of British Columbia, Jock Finlay's shop, put out a really fascinating piece on the carbon tax. Even with the rest of Canada now paying carbon tax as of today, because of Justin Trudeau, we are still paying far more than the other places are paying. We are still paying with the highest carbon tax in North America. We have the highest gas taxes in North America. And, it's not uncommon for people to be paying more in carbon tax than they are for natural gas to heat their homes or fire up their stoves. So this is really problematic where the NDP are taking us. But this is what happens when you elect a government who only cares about their ideology and activism and paying back their friends and insiders.
Well, for the 4 provinces that opposed the federal carbon tax, people get rebates. There's no rebate in BC, is there?
Not anymore. So it used to be revenue neutral, and I think the first $30 or $35 a ton is still revenue neutral, but now NDP have raised that by $10 a ton since. That is no longer revenue neutral, so that money just flows into general revenue, and John Horgan can spend it as he sees fit, and he'll probably try to use it to buy the votes of people who are prone to being bought off by their government. So it's really disgusting, and it's a big problem competitiveness-wise, not just with the rest of Canada, but with the United States, where we're seeing more and more even mid-range builders here head to the States to build in Bellingham or Blaine or Seattle rather than continue to deal with the very low margin, high regulation, insane tax regime of British Columbia.
Is there any evidence that this carbon tax in BC that's been in for over a decade has changed behavior or has really reduced the use of cars or carbon or anything like that?
Oh, God, no. No, there's no evidence whatsoever, and it's a complete myth. And look, this isn't just an NDP issue. The BC Liberals were guilty of hiking this thing up as well. At least they had some tax cuts to go along with it. But no, there's no difference between us and other parts of the country as far as greenhouse gas emissions. And in fact, the only time greenhouse gas emissions dropped in British Columbia was during the 2008 global economic meltdown, where people were out of jobs and plants shut down. And there was a huge economic problem around the world. And bluntly, that's the last thing we want. So, it's a bit of a joke that we're still clinging to this fallacy that the carbon tax is somehow saving the earth.
Well, I mean, for small contractors who use large pickup trucks, what's the alternative? Can they go out and buy an e-vehicle to do the job right now?
No, they can't, and they aren't for the municipalities. They can't buy a electric garbage truck, for example. These things don't exist. But and for people who are heating homes, at some point along the line, you're going to have to pay carbon tax on how you're heating your home. It's easy for people in Victoria. I get a little frustrated when I read some of these Victoria reporters talk about how the carbon tax is hunky dory and nothing bad has happened in BC with it in place. It's really easy for them to say. They live in the most temperate climate in Canada. They don't need it to heat their house when it's minus 40 out. I'd like to see them try to deal with these issues in Grand Prairie or in Inuvik or somewhere at Fort St. John, somewhere much colder than sunny Victoria.
Sure, they had minus 40 in Fort St. John. I'd like to see the tulips bloom there right now.
Yeah. We'll take your bike to the natural gas to the gas patch and do your work there. I guess that's the Victoria elitist NDP model. When you only have MLAs from really the Lower Mainland and Vancouver Island, you forget that it's a very big province and a heck of a lot colder in many parts of it than in the temperate West Coast.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the Pink's CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, how is home building going for your organization?
Well, government's predicting a slowdown in housing starts. We're already starting to see a little bit of a downturn. Companies slowing down the next project because they're uncertain of the economy and whether there'll be buyers at the other end for it. That's bad news because the best way to continue to ramp up or to start to lower housing costs is to ramp up supply. So you can't blame, I don't blame these builders, but at the same time, the government of British Columbia and Canada have made it very expensive, really eaten into any kind of margin as far as building housing, let alone building rental housing, and made it less attractive to do so.
What can they do to increase the building of homes and bringing down the prices?
Stop thinking that government can solve everything for one. There's a 30-point housing affordability plan the NDP brought out last year. There's only 1 point about supply of all 30. The rest are taxes and regulation and red tape and all of that, which actually just makes things more expensive. Or government investment, which then we pay for through taxes. There are companies ready, willing, and able to build. They should be leaning on local governments to speed up approvals, pre-zone lands, make it more attractive financially to build rental properties at a lower end. That could all be done, but instead they just keep going back to the old hammer of whacking rich people because they think somehow that'll change the market for $300,000 condos.
Well, Jordan, this of course isn't your first rodeo. Have you ever seen a government tax plan actually improve a situation?
Have I ever seen a government tax plan improve a situation? That's not offhand. I mean, gas taxes keep pouring into TransLink. That increased by $0.015 today on top of the 1.1 cent carbon tax increase. It's not like things are any better there. Government, especially NDP governments, are so ideological in the way they act that they don't, they hate the free market so much that they want to, stuff it out as much as possible. They hate private property rights. They hate anyone who's been successful in life. They hate anyone who doesn't live exactly as they believe everyone should live, which apparently is in a government-subsidized rental property. So this is the issue. We got to keep fighting back on this and keep holding the government to account to make sure that we're doing whatever we can to encourage good jobs, investment in British Columbia, and then housing for the workforce.
Is it good news that there's word a First Nations group may become the majority shareholder of the Trans Mountain Pipeline?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, it's a very complicated deal. You'd have to have financing and all those things. We'd suggest if you're going to do it, you try to do it as a way to settle out certain claims. Make sure that there is something extracted for the taxpayer. It would be hilarious to watch John Horgan and Andrew Weaver ramp up their attacks on a pipeline owned by the First Nations, because one of the biggest lies that they've circulated about this pipeline is that First Nations aren't in favor of it. In fact, most British Columbians, most Canadians, and indeed most First Nations affected are very much in favor of this pipeline and want to get it done. So having them own it would actually be a delicious irony, and I'm not sure anything could shut John Horgan and Andrew Weaver up on this, but that would go a long way.
Would the twinning of the pipeline from Edmonton to Burnaby lower gasoline prices in the Lower Mainland?
Yes. So you bring more supply. Now, some of it's going to Asia. I think there's this feeling that, it's going to be like chock-a-block full of bitumen. These pipelines can actually do different forms of fuel, including the feedstock that refineries need. And further, you're gaining more, the Asian market's paying more for this gasoline this fuel than the U.S. market. That as well closes that gap and helps make this industry more sustainable. So, yeah, it would just simply because you have that backup. Right now, if that pipeline goes down, we're basically trucking in or rail car in all this fuel that we need. The more options you have, the better it is.
Right, and of course, a pipeline is safer than shipping it by truck or by rail car.
Oh, 1,000 times safer. I mean, that's one of the big scary things is that, John Horgan and Andrew Weaver and their silly opposition to this have forced Rachel Notley to buy a bunch of rail cars and run them by some of the most sensitive salmon rivers in British Columbia in order to get their product to market. And, it's just completely hypocritical of two guys who claim they care about the environment to allow that to happen, and it's all happened because they just refuse to accept this.
Yes, isn't it ironical that just a few miles down the road in Seattle, they're holding protests demanding pipelines because they don't want the dangerous traffic of oil tanker cars?
Exactly. I don't know where these U.S. Professional protesters are on that. I don't know why they're not down there torturing the Washington state governor, who apparently is planning to run for office on a climate change agenda, run for president on a climate change agenda. But they're more concerned. The truth is, these American professional protesters are being paid by big lobby groups to try to shut down the oil and gas patch in Canada, make us more reliant on American energy interests. It's sickening. It's disgusting. It should stop. And bluntly, John Horgan is selling out Canada, selling out British Columbia. Every day he continues to fight this pipeline.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTC QB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website grandportage.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, April 1st, ICBC, the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia, where everybody has to get their car insurance, they're bringing in new changes. Are they welcome changes?
We'll wait and see. I'm skeptical on these changes. I think they're designed to do one thing only, cost ratepayers more money. They're trying to extract more money from quote-unquote bad drivers, which we'll really see the effect of in September when the second wave of changes happen. Look, there's a lot of people out there who may have a speeding ticket. Congratulations. In the government's eyes, you're now a bad driver. You can have a clean driving record for 30 years, get one HOV infraction, or maybe put your phone, move your phone from your pocket to the console at the wrong moment and get dinged for that. You are a bad driver in Dave Eby's eyes. Good drivers are going to pay more. So-called bad drivers, I would call them regular drivers, are going to end up paying far more. This is going to be a bad scene as people start to get their bill, and I expect a steady stream of BC Liberals introducing, the receipts of what their constituents have been forced to pay in the House. As you see folks see, $6, $7, $8, $9, maybe even $10,000 jumps in their premiums, simply because maybe they're young or maybe they had one ticket. This is going to be a real noose around David Eby's electoral possibilities.
Now, of course, it was the BC Liberal government that ran up the huge debt for ICBC, using it as a cash cow. Should we get rid of government insurance altogether in British Columbia?
Yes, we should get rid of government insurance altogether. But let's just put the so-called cash cow, because that's a very loaded NDP-friendly term, which frankly does not bear out. So the Liberals took about $1.1 billion out of ICBC. Everyone's like, oh my God, $1 billion a year. No. That's $1.1 billion over 17 years in power. So you're talking about, less than $100 million a year that they took out of that. Of that, most of it was during good years when the company was profitable. Now, would I prefer to have seen a rebate to drivers? Yeah, I would have. However, it's not like that money went into Gordon Campbell's pocket or Christy Clark's pocket and they were strutting around town in a new car because they had ICBC money. No, that money went into hospitals, it went into roads, it went into all these wonderful things that the NDP claim we need to tax folks for. So, it's a loaded thing. I'd point out the NDP also took money when they were in power in the 90s out of ICBC. The Socreds did in the 80s. That's one of the flaws of the crowns and the way they were set up, is that it was allowed to happen. But this isn't like a cash cow, oh my God. And, further, even if it was $1.1 billion in 1 year, this is when there was record returns on investments. And ICBC holds about $11 billion in its investment portfolio. So, there's lots to complain about BC Liberal management of ICBC. God knows I complained a lot about it at the Taxpayers Federation. But some of the, forget the dumpster fire. Dave Eby needs to quit setting his hair on fire over some of these things that, just frankly weren't that bad. Now, look, the insurer has not kept up with the times. That's a management issue. They were very slow and expensive in their software upgrades. They weren't ready for this big change in cars, and they don't use their buying power to grind down mechanics. We pay some of the highest mechanic rates in North America, despite the fact that we have, an insurer that really can control the flow of work and could go to, or push for cheaper rates. So there's lots to be done there, but, ICBC is going to continue to be a big issue for, I'm sure, many, many years to come until some government finally sobers up. Andrew Wilkinson sounds like he's willing to do it if he's elected, and gets rid of it altogether.
Jordan, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, Vice President of Communications for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. His website, icba.ca. If you have any questions for Jordan or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.